Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to Populist Politics. My name is Bobby Funk, your host. This is episode 10 of the show, so if you wouldn't mind, hit that like button, give a comment, let me know what you think, and follow me on my Twitter handle, Funkinator __. That is where I give you my opinions about the current political climate in the United States, as well as geopolitics. Tonight's going to be about that geopolitics, particularly the war in Iran, because there's a lot of latest developments, and it's getting exciting because it's becoming much of a regional war. At first it was Iran, the United States, Israel, the Gulf countries. Now some of the other obsolete and surrounding countries are getting involved. Syria is getting involved. Jordan is playing a much bigger role as Iran has now hit the U.S. bases in Jordan. There's been great developments in Yemen. The Houthi rebels are activated, and it's getting very complex. And to understand the conflict, you have to know that there's three distinct arenas at play. First is the Persian Gulf, which is the fighting between Iran, the U.S., and the Gulf cooperation countries that Iran is hitting in response to the U.S. attacks on their military capabilities in Bandar Abbas. So the U.S. is striking Iran's command and control centers. Now, what is a command and control center? Is where the military surveillance the Strait of Hormuz, and this is where they communicate with each other to find ships to hit along the Strait of Hormuz. Then you also have their air defense capabilities, their coastal surveillance, and their maritime capabilities, which is their speedboats and their launch missile and drone launch sites that the U.S. is all pounding. Now, this could just be like the Central Command says. It's to free up the Strait of Hormuz and pave a way for these commercial vessels to eventually transit the strait. But it could also be a prelude for an attack on Kharg Island, because those maritime defense and missiles and drones are going to be the weapons that Iran is going to be using to hit the Navy if they try to take over an island such as Kharg Island. And Iran is responding with missiles and drones to the Gulf cooperation countries that host U.S. bases. Now, both countries are also hitting civilian infrastructure. The U.S. has hit bridges and power plants. They say the bridges are used by the IRGC to transport those weapons to the Strait of Hormuz where they can fire it on commercial shipping. That's how the United States is justifying that. But they're also hitting this desalination plants. What is a desalination plant? This is where salt water is being transformed to fresh water. This is how people in the Middle East have drinkable water. So this is happening. The U.S. is striking Iran's desalination plants, and Iran is striking Kuwait's desalination plants. So they're hitting energy, but also civilian infrastructure that carries these people's day-to-day lives by being able to drink water. So this is a major escalation into an energy and a civilian war. Now, both of them have their economic blockades on each other. So the U.S. reimposed that naval blockade on Iranian exports, while Iran has their economic blockade on the Strait of Hormuz by targeting these ships and blowing them up. So as Iran has been hitting these bases in the Middle East, in Jordan they killed 2 American citizens, 1 is missing, and then this other service member died in Iraq when a missile, no, I think it was a drone came down, but it never exploded. So what the military does is they call it a contained explosion. They throw dynamite on it to get the actual drone to blow up, and this is very dangerous but common in war, that when they do this, that people around it, they could perish and die. So this one guy, I don't know if they said if it was a guy or not though, but 1 U.S. soldier died in Iraq doing this. So you have this Persian Gulf arena where the 3 actors, the United States, Iran, and the Gulf Cooperation countries, or cooperation countries, are fighting each other. Then you have a second arena, which is the Israel and Hezbollah fight that's been going on. There hasn't been much activity recently, a few Israeli strikes here and there, but the big news this week was that Syria actually intercepted a weapons transfer from the Iranian backed militia group that was trying to transport weapons through the Syrian-Iraq border to eventually get to Hezbollah in Lebanon, because it seems like Hezbollah has stopped their reign on Israel because they don't have enough weapons to sustain their fight. So they need more shipments of missiles and drones. So Syria blocking that transport is big, and it really shows the change in the Syrian leadership since this new president, who is U.S. friendly, has been in the change in leadership in Syria. That's a big development in the region because Syria used to be one of our greatest enemies in the region. And then you also have the third arena that's opening up, and this is the Saudi and Houthis in Yemen. So they've been fighting for a long time, and the height of their fighting was in 2022 during the Israeli-Hamas war, where they were bombarding shipping in the Red Sea at the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which also contains 12% of the world trade. So and they're already starting to do this now, the Houthis have stated that they're planning on shutting down commercial shipping in the Red Sea. And they did this in 2022, and the United States and Israel responded by starting an airstrike on Yemen. And Saudi has been trying to avoid the Strait of Hormuz with their east-west pipeline, where they're taking their oil through this pipeline and transporting it away from the Strait of Hormuz to the Red Sea. And now the Houthis are responding by they said they're going to send missiles towards these commercial ships that are trying to transport the oil a different way. They're not going to let Saudi circumvent the Iranians and get their oil to the market. So this is a very complex and just regional war here, as we don't know what the United States move is going to be next. Trump has already stated that he's not going to make a decision yet, and he's had these situation room meetings with key Pentagon and military officials to try to come up with a plan to escalate the war or not escalate the war and continue with these diplomatic efforts from the mediators that are not really going anywhere, to be honest. And we kind of have to do something, the United States, because there's no tug and pull with Iran. The Memorandum of Understanding did not work. The Iranians were hell-bent on keeping the Strait of Hormuz to themselves and charging some sort of toll. And the United States cannot let that happen because that's where global shipping is 20% of the world economy goes through there. So we can't allow them to do that. What we also can't have them have is a nuclear weapon, because that nuclear weapon would destabilize the region. We already have Israel, who has a nuclear weapon. We don't need Iran to have one too. But it is Iran's interest to get a nuclear weapon to fend off Israel and the United States attacks. And Israel is hell-bent on regime change in Iran. So Israel's chomping at the bits right now, waiting for Trump to give them the go-ahead to attack Tehran. Right now, the United States is just hitting their coastal missiles and drones. They haven't hit a lot of the nuclear infrastructure. There's been this talk that they're going to bomb Pixax Mountain, which holds a supposed secret Iranian nuclear facility. They haven't hit, during the course of this war, they haven't hit those 3 nuclear sites that they hit last year, the Isfahan, Natanz, and there's one other one that I can't think of. But those ones that they hit in Midnight Hammer, are they going to hit those again? And they haven't given any strikes to Tehran, and Israel is waiting for the go-ahead to attack Tehran. Israel hasn't been participating in the coastal strikes. They're sitting back and they're waiting for the United States to give up on this diplomacy, and in some ways they are sabotaging it by not abiding to the original ceasefire and the MOU by persisting that they don't have to follow the rule that Lebanon is included in the diplomatic efforts. So there's a ton going on, and it's very complicated, but you have to understand that there's 3 distinct arenas in this conflict. It's not just the Persian Gulf. I think that's what a lot of people get wrong about the Iranian situation, and they just say that we can't allow them to have a nuclear weapon, but it's more than that. Why can't we let them have a nuclear weapon? What does Israel do to prevent peace? And this threat from the Houthis to shut down the Red Sea shipping is a major factor that needs to be addressed. And it's not going to go away, and I don't think this is going to be a quick fix. It certainly hasn't been the original timeline that the Trump administration sought out for. You remember when they said 4 to 6 weeks that this would take? Now we were approaching our 5th month. I've said it from the start. I don't think Iran was this imminent a threat that we needed to go in there with Israel. And Israel definitely persuaded us, and they it worked. They convinced us to attack Iran. Whether or not they had a nuclear weapon or were close to having a nuclear weapon is in contention. So yeah, that's my update so far of the Iranian war, and I hope you enjoyed this little 15-minute show. I'm still learning about this stuff, but that's what I'm seeing in my research, and hopefully we can get out of this war soon enough and focus on America's problems.